In this video, I'm going to go over how to use work planes, how to use offset, and how to use the use or project geometry tool in Onshape in order to create kind of a unique shape for the paper lantern project. And so the first thing that we do is we start with a part studio, and I've created a new part studio. I've named it Paper Lantern because that's the project we're working on. So I want to make sure that you stay organized, and so those are the couple things that I want to remind you about to begin with. From here, I'm going to make a shape, and it's going to be this lantern that starts kind of small and then gets bigger and then gets smaller, it's going to be kind of a unique shape and blends from one size to a different size. And it's one way that you can create your paper lantern. In the next video, what I'm going to do is show you how to convert that into a sheet metal part and what settings you would use in order to make this the sheet metal flat pattern for a paper lantern, something you could print out and cut and fold all together for the final thing. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hide my front and right views, my planes, because those are just going to get in the way for right now. And I'm going to start with my flat top, and then I'm going to go and up and make work planes from that. And so from here, I'm going to make a sketch. I'm going to kind of decide. So I'm making a sketch on my top. And for this, I'm going to use the polygon tool. And in this case, you have inscribed. It just means that there's a circle that is inscribed, drawn inside of the polygon, the regular polygon, or there's a circumscribed where it is drawn around the outside of that polygon. For our purposes, it doesn't really matter which one we use. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that shape and click. And after I've did that first click, if I move my mouse down, it's going to lower the number of sides. If I move my mouse up, it's going to raise the number of sides. I can always change that later, but I'm going to actually make mine 7. So this one I've got 7. I like to have everything fully constrained, so I'm going to dimension this circle, and I want the size of this. This is going to go from small to big to small to possibly big again, and so the kind of smaller size I want to have is probably close to about 3.5 inches. So I'm gonna make that as my size. That's something we can always change later on, but it's just something 3.5 might be within the good range. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top line that's almost horizontal, and I'm going to use my horizontal constraint to make that horizontal. And I do that just so that all of my lines are fully constrained. And I just like to have everything fully constrained on every sketch. It just makes it easier, makes it better. This is actually done. Everything's fully constrained from there, so I'm going to finish up that sketch. And we're going to use the Loft tool in order to do this. And from there, that means I need another plane that's parallel to this one, and that also has a shape on it. So what I'm going to do is click on my plane tool up here, and where it says entities, you can make planes based on a lot of sketch or feature geometry. In this case, we're going to use it based off of our existing plane right here. And we're going to do an offset plane, so that just means that it's parallel but a certain distance away. And I'm going to do an offset of about 3 inches. That's part of your creativity. You can change it based on whatever you want. But for me, I'm going to start with 3 inches and see how that works. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make all my planes to begin with. I'm going to start with all of my planes. So I'm going to use that plane tool again, select my plane 1 and offset again, and this will be another. Actually, I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. I'm gonna go 2 inches, so it's not gonna be symmetrical, but it doesn't need to be symmetrical. So I've got 2 inches right there, and I might actually go one more time, and I'm gonna go 3 inches. So maybe I do engineering brain. I kind of like things symmetrical, so it'll be a big one, a small one, and a big one. Okay. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to make a sketch, and I'm going to just kind of start from my bottom and work my way up. And so on this next sketch, I'm going to, so I made the sketch, I clicked on the plane, look at it flat. This time I'm going to make the exact same shape, but just slightly bigger. And so the tool we use for that is the offset tool. And so I click on offset up here, I'm in my sketch mode, and I move my mouse so that there's a orange outline around this entire shape. If I go to a specific line, that will just offset the line, but I want the entire shape to be offset. So I'm going to make sure that the entire shape is actually highlighted in orange. And I want this to be slightly bigger, so that's good. And so my arrow is pointing out, and so that's the direction I want it to be. And so if I wanted to flip it, I could click on that arrow either way. I'm going to click off into space right there, and that allows me to change that dimension. I'm going to go 0.5 bigger. And I want the next layer of this to be 0.5. So it's going to go from smaller to bigger. And then from there, I'm going to actually kind of have this next one. I want to have a straight section where it's just the same shape, same size, just a bunch of rectangles here. So what I can actually do is make a sketch and select my next plane up. Notice I had to rotate it in order to be able to actually tell what was going on there. But once I've got that sketch plane there, I can rotate it again. And this time I don't want it to be offset. I want it to be the exact same shape. And so what I can actually use is this option called use or project. And just like a projector, it takes a shape or something and puts it a certain distance away. So it went from that bottom sketch, that first sketch, onto this closer sketch that we have right now, and that same shape showed up. And so that part is all good. For the next one, I am going to make this symmetrical. It's not a requirement for you, but sometimes it's kind of nice to see some symmetry. Again, not a requirement. So I'm going to actually make a sketch on my plane 3. You can see my sketches up here on this plane. But what I actually want is the shape, my original shape again. And if I were to use my views and I try to find this bottom shape, it doesn't allow me to easily do that. But what I can actually do is move my mouse and I can actually find that shape and rotate it so I can actually click on that shape if needed. If it were a solid shape, I might have to rotate it all the way around. But that use just takes those edges and shapes and everything and brings them up to this sketch. And just like we don't actually need to dimension anything because we've already fully constrained it on that first one. So it's just taking the exact same shape and bringing it up. So I've got my 4 different layers. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to make a loft tool. And this part is actually important. You have to do numerous lofts. If I were to, I'm going to kind of show and click on all of these shapes at once. You're going to notice that it has these shapes that curve, and they, like, in order to go through all of these, they have to actually curve, but it that actually doesn't work for our purposes right now. So what I'm actually going to do is remove those, and I'm just going to do the profiles of 2 of those, and now we have straight walls instead of curved walls. Then from there I can create another loft, And I'm going to go from that second sketch to my third sketch. I can select this face and this sketch right here in my larger window. And then one last third sketch, fourth sketch. And so I went from sketch 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. And so now I have, if I'm looking at it from the side, these are straight lines. All of these planes are flat. These sides are completely flat. And that's going to allow us to actually use the sheet metal tool for our purposes. So there you have it. We used the Loft tool. We used these offset work planes to get these work planes here. We used, within our sketches, we used the offset tool. And then we also used the project or use or convert tool. And so those are new tools for us, and you can see how they make making these parts much easier, much faster.